Innovative definition of innovative financing. If you are able to get back your money, it is innovative financing. If in a conventional sense, and if we go back to the history of corporate collapse or the financial sector collapse, innovative financing means you structure a product, you draft the documents which you do not understand, your legal counsel do not understand, the lending institution do not understand, the developer do not understand. You are able to lend the money and the borrower is able to take the money. Whether you are able to recover or not recover is all in the hands of the God. What happens is you adopt a waterfall mechanism. You pass on first waterfall mechanism, and secondly, there are tier of risk absorbers. You pass on your risk to somebody else and somebody else to somebody else and somebody else to somebody else. And that's a never-ending approach. So at the end of the day, you do not know what was the risk and how that risk gets mitigated and where does it gets finally crystallized. And that has been the very genesis of the financial crisis that we have seen in 1997, in 2000 and 2008. If you look in the context of India and the renewable mission that the government of India has launched, it's really a very important topic to discuss. 175 gigawatt means more than 15 lakh crores, not only in terms of the generation capacity, but all attended value chain. You need 15 lakh crores, so you need money. Assuming there is money available, that's not enough. We need to answer many questions. If we are able to see that that money, if it is at all available, reaches to the right project and the right developer. Do we have an institutional infrastructure to be enable to lend that money? My answer is possibly no. Possibly no. We do not have a financial institution. There are institutions, large institutions in the public sector, but most of the lending goes to the private sector. Whether the public sector lending culture and the ethos are compatible to the private sector initiative, that's a big question. Where are the institutions in the private sector to lend such a huge money? There is no corporate bond market. How does the persons goes if they do not approach the institutions to raise that money? And even if that institutional infrastructure is created, do we have a financial instruments to lend? The answer is certainly no. When we talk about infrastructure project, it is not like a conventional consumer or the automobile project. These are infrastructure projects. Every project is different in terms of risk profile. Every promoter is different in terms of risk profile. You need to have a financial product whereby you are able to cater to the need of a project during its entire life cycle, at a conceptual stage, at the developmental stage, at the implementation stage, at the operation stage, and also when the company or the project exit. For all these entire links in the value chain, you need financial product. You need the institution to take care of that financing product. There should be funding available even for a deadwood project, but we do not have we do not have the institutions, we do not have the product which takes care of the financial products in the entire value chain. So there are huge challenges. And lastly, before I request the panelists to speak, what we are really dealing with as a lender, we have learned to deal with the risk. We have not learned to deal with uncertainties. We try to convert, we try to deal with uncertainties as if we know the subject very well. We try to convert them uncertainties into risk and then try to mitigate and lend the project. That means that's an illusion. We try to befool ourselves. We try to befool the developers, and the developers befool themselves, because you can mitigate risk, you cannot mitigate uncertainties. You have to deal with the uncertainties as they come forward. And therefore, the financing in the current times has really becoming very challenging. If you ask me in terms of the solar projects as to when I look at my balance sheet as a lender, we have lent something around 20,000 crores to the power sector, sanctioned 20,000 crores to the power sector as of now. If you ask me what is the how far and how beyond I look at my balance sheet, I said I do not look beyond 2 to 3 years, because I'm dealing with the uncertainties. How the uncertainties would unfold and how they impact my balance sheets, I do not know. So that's the challenges, and there lies the innovative financing. I know there is a challenge in managing this, moderating a session after the lunch, and the challenge before the panelists is to keep you awake. And the best way to awake is to allow more time for the interaction. We have 6 panelists, and I would suggest them, each of them, to take 5 minutes, and so that I'm not able to perform an unpleasant task of being a moderator. And before we start, we have 2 publications to be released by NRDC, that is the Natural Resource Defense Council. One is setting up a green bank, a solution to India's clean energy finance barriers. The another is greening India's financial markets, opportunity for a green bank in India. These documents have been brought in collaboration and together with IREDA. So I'll thank you, Mr. Gupta. What you pointed out is creative financing and not an innovative financing, and that's what has been the misery of the financing world all along. The creative financing often takes over the innovative financing, and that's the reason why the lenders are not able to get back their money, and the economies and the nation suffers so much. On the equity raising is a big issue. The promoters, they start the projects, they have some of their own equity, then they start over leveraging. And the renewable is nothing but a game of aggregating and the scaling up. They do not have enough equity. They look for the equity partners. The equity partners comes in the hope of making returns. Then there starts, soon after a couple of years, there starts the distrust between the equity partners, and the projects run into a difficult, difficult cycle. We have seen an emergence of a new kind of developers, or the development of the renewable project in India. You do not find, earlier you had a professional turned developers in the renewables, and the private equity players were supporting them. Later on, the private equity players realized that why they should remain a minority stakeholders, and why they should not themselves take a majority stake, set up their own projects, and give these professionals a sweat equity. So we are now seeing a new structure, innovation in the structure of renewable projects, where private equity, large private equity funds have set up a holding company, and then under that they have SPVs. They have hired the, if I can use that word, the professionals, giving them the sweat equity, and they are scaling up to 1,000 megawatts and 2,000 megawatts. That's the new concept emerging, and I would believe there is hardly a big global private equity players who do not have their holding company in India. So that's how the emergence of new concepts, new innovations in the equity financing. The debt financing is easier, but the equity financing is far more difficult. And I remember a couple of years ago, I was addressing a conference of about 3,000 persons in Calcutta, and someone asked me a question. So I'm telling a couple of years ago, if some change have taken place, maybe with subject to that rider. Somebody in a distance in the audience asked me a question. Sir, what if after taking the private equity player, if we want to kick them out, what we should do? I mean, that's how the relationship between the private equity players and the developer in the conventional sense has been. And I believe when the professional set up a project and the private equity players comes in, I'm sure the relationships are bound to be different. But the managing that relationship on the professional lines, on the ethical lines, is a big challenge, and is something one needs to learn before someone venture into taking equity from from any other than of his own. So with that, we have reached to Q&A. I promised half an hour. I'm late by 5 minutes, so it's 35 minutes. And so it's for the Q&A, the floor is open.